Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, today it really is the Stacie's Mom podcast.
Yeah, today it's just us. So, hi, welcome.
Hi.
So today's episode we're going to go into more detail about your story and the history of just how the church has kind of kept you in a really abusive marriage. And so before we begin, we wanted to start with a trigger warning for anyone. Uh, Basically, we're going to talk about different types of abuse. So, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse. So, if any of those things are too much, then please do not feel free or feel like you have to stay. Feel free to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
um, yeah, at any point. So, just wanted to give a trigger warning right off the bat before we get into any more discussions. So, yeah, where do we begin?
Oh my God.
We've touched on so much of your story. You kind of left some I don't want to say breadcrumbs, but we've talked here and there about certain aspects, but we wanted to just go a little bit deeper into
Right.
different parts of it and how the church can just keep women, especially in these.
Yes. Oh, what happened to you, Stace?
I don't know.
Oh, oh, okay. There you're back.
I'm
All right.
back. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know what's
Okay.
wrong.
Yeah. You had a really long blink.
Oh, hopefully it was a nice
Okay.
blink.
Yeah.
Um,
It never is. It's
no, I know. um,
okay.
okay, so why don't you talk about just wherever you want to begin?
Okay. First, hi Derek and hi SR and everybody. Hi everybody.
Everyone.
Just a couple familiar people who
Yeah.
have really been with us for our short little journey. So, and Crystal.
And
Hi
Crystal.
Crystal.
Hi.
Okay. I've been kind of not stressing, but I've had a little bit of anxiety about this because I want to be really open and really honest. The main reason is not just to air my laundry, but just in case someday someone clicks on this tomorrow or 2 years from now
Mm-hmm.
and it speaks to them in any way and helps them. That is the main reason for this. Same reason you do what you do,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was out of my marriage to your biological father, for lack of a better term, I know that how do I even begin? Okay. So your biological father and I were basically forced to get married because we got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by my mother, you either get married or you just don't see each other again. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, 17, pregnant. uh, I don't want to do
What am I
that.
gonna do?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we got married and
Mm-hmm.
then we ended up having a stillborn child. And then I think we were kind of standing in the rubble, think, oh crap. So we didn't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But then married is married, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't need to cover all that, but a couple years later you were born and then 3 years later your brother was born and
Mm-hmm.
you guys were, I mean, blessings for lack of a better word. You just were.
Mm-hmm.
Blessings don't always have to mean they came from God.
Yeah,
Were
I agree. Yeah,
blessings
I
in
know
my
what you mean.
life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we separated and divorced when you guys were really young. You were 3 and your brother was 4 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was on my own
Mm-hmm.
and I was just this very devoted little young Christian single mom who lived here in the town that we're in right now. And across the street from me lived this very exciting, seemingly American man who just let my friend who lived next door to me know wow, that chick you hang out with, she's really hot.
Mhm.
Me. And she
Mhm.
said, "Well, she's Christian and, not quite legally divorced, so I don't think she'd even so much as go out for coffee with you," and she was right.
Right.
And, um, I ended up moving away from this town before my divorce was legally final,
Mhm.
and your grandmother and I moved away, and we moved to the big city of Vancouver. And lo and behold, who did I end up running into on the street in Vancouver was this guy who lived across the street from me here in this small town in Vancouver, and he lived there too. So now you were 5 and your brother was 2.
Right.
Run into this guy who just seemed like so exciting and worldly and whatever, and I didn't know at the time he was
Mhm.
14 years older than I was because he just didn't seem that much older, and
Right.
he was American, he was Black, and he just seemed close to my age, he just so
Yeah.
anyway, through a lot of different circumstances, I ended up with him,
Mhm.
and I ended up married to him,
Mhm.
and I ended up in an extremely controlling and abusive marriage, and
Mhm.
it happens in such a way that you don't realize what's happening until you're in it, and one day you sit somewhere, with me, it was usually in a bedroom or in a bathroom going, "How the hell did I get here?"
Yeah.
And you end up asking yourself that thousands and thousands and thousands of times,
Mhm.
and over the course of 12 years, I must have asked myself that hundreds of thousands of times,
Yeah.
and, um there were times where we would go to church,
Mhm.
like, um, and he didn't have a problem with me going to church. When I
Yeah.
wasn't going to church, it was usually because you and I, or he and I would he would move us around, and it would be a new city, a new town, whatever, and I just didn't have a church family. I didn't know anyone, but if we were somewhere long enough, I would generally try to find a church family just so I could
Mhm.
feel some sort of community.
Yeah.
Um, but what would happen is he would end up coming to that church and in some way ingratiate himself within
And
the congregation. He had this
it would feel
flamboyant.
ruined.
Yeah, it would.
Like
He
our
would
safe
just
space was,
yeah,
like,
violated.
infiltrated. Yeah.
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 So everyone would just start liking him because he was so gregarious, outgoing, and
Mhm.
we would end just like, "Oh my god, people
Mhm.
have no idea. He's just
What we're
not this."
living with. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell people because I didn't wanna be that woman who complained about, "Well, you have no idea what's going on at home."
Mhm.
Yet I stayed. So
Yeah.
I didn't wanna be that. It was so weird
Yeah.
because I grew up in an abusive home.
Yeah.
So
So, what were some of the things, like, we should explain kind of some of the
okay,
ways our life
okay.
was just to
Well, he moved us around a lot.
Mhm. And by
He
moved us around,
Yeah,
I
you
went
tell that because yeah, you tell
yeah,
that. I
well,
need a drink.
I went to a lot of schools. I went to in elementary school alone, I went to over 20 different schools, probably close to 25, to be
Yeah,
honest.
one time
Grade
you sat and you counted them.
Yeah, grade 6 alone, I went to 4 elementary schools
Yep,
in just grade 6.
yep,
I was always the new kid, and that year, I only learned geometry and math because
yeah.
that's, like, every
Every
time
time
I
you move schools, that's what they were taking.
yeah, so that's all I
Yeah,
learned that year was geometry. Um, and we moved houses like, more than that, and
because he would never pay the rent and we'd
yeah,
get evicted.
we would get
It was
evicted.
so embarrassing.
Our our bills were never paid. Our We would always be getting a new phone number. Um, it was just It was horrible. We moved so much. I think I've lived in, and this is again not an exaggeration. I
Yep,
at one point did count, probably around the time I was like 20, but it was up to like 45 or 50 houses that I lived
yep,
in before I got married at
yep,
22.
yep.
So it's a lot.
And
And
prior to that, when I was a single mom,
mhm,
we didn't have to move at all, and I never was evicted from anywhere. I would give my notice and move if I needed a bigger place, and
yeah.
my landlords I always got my damage deposit back with interest.
Yeah.
I had never been evicted from anywhere. It was the
Yeah.
most humiliating experience of my life to
I
be
remember
evicted.
coming home from a date and seeing the uneviction notice on our front door, and I think the car was still moving, and I jumped out of the car, went over to the door, ripped it off the
I
door,
remember that.
and he's like, "Well, what was that?" He knew, and I was like, "Oh, it was just someone leaving a note for us." And I just, like, crumpled it up, and I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god." Yeah, it was an
That
eviction
was very
notice, so
close to the end. I
yeah, it
remember
was,
that.
yeah.
That was when I
So,
finally
but
just
I mean, there were times where like, I mean, we were on welfare at times. He never worked. He didn't keep a job. We sometimes didn't have food in our cupboards. We,
lived on
uh,
tapioca pudding.
lived on I was thinking that lived on tapioca pudding. Um, just basically relied on, just other people. Okay, so when I was in high school, this is kinda after you left, but, like, I'm just jumping
Yeah.
ahead, but just to give an
Uh,
example, like, after after you left, I had my friends in grade 12 coming and asking me if we were ever gonna see him again because he owed all my friends money.
yeah, and we had no clue.
I was like, "I hope I don't see him again."
Yeah.
But he
No.
had asked all my friends for money, and they gave it
Yeah.
to him, and because he just knew how
He
to
did that
smooth talk.
with my aunt. I found out that he was going to my aunt for money, and when I
Mhm.
found out how much it was, I gave her payments to pay her back, and I said, "Do not give him any more money." Then she gave him money behind my back and got
Mm.
in debt. He got in debt to her again, I'm like, "I can't keep doing this," because I
Yeah.
was giving up, like, my family allowance and things that I
Yeah.
needed for you guys, so
Yeah.
but anyway,
So,
we
jumping
would
ahead, but
yeah, we would go to church, and I remember specifically this one specific church,
yeah.
and I had had enough. This was the last church I really got involved with, and when
Mhm.
I was finally just, "I am so effing done."
This is the church where a lot of our stories come from too, the
So
charismatic
yeah,
stories. So,
yeah.
yeah,
This
anyways.
was the final straw for me was when I was just so over everything. This church, when your grandmother introduced us to this church, and she says, "I found the church, I found the place." I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll go," because at least when we went to church,
Mhm.
he didn't check up on me. Like anywhere else I went, he had to
Yeah.
know where I was, what time I was coming back, who I was with, and we didn't have cell phones back then. But if I was
Mhm.
gonna be somewhere, I had to be reachable by phone, and he would
Yeah.
check up on me, and it was just insane. Like, if it was even at your uncle's or at my friend's, he would call like 100 times to make sure I was there. It
Yeah.
was just insane.
Yeah.
Um, so I went to the church, and when I decided, "Okay, this is where we'll go. This seems like a safe space." It was close enough to home that we could get rides because I couldn't even get my driver's license. I couldn't get a job. I wasn't allowed to have a life, but church
Yeah.
was okay. Church was
Yeah.
okay. So I asked the pastor if I could have a meeting with him, and I had a meeting with him, and I told him, "Okay, I'm gonna start coming here and bringing my children, but here's what's gonna happen. My husband will start coming soon after. He's going to act like he's everybody's best friend.
Mhm.
He's gonna win everybody over with his personality." I forgot to mention he's a former professional athlete.
Yeah.
And, he's gonna just win everybody over. He's just gonna and I said, "And then what he's going to do is he's going to make everybody feel sorry for us because he's out of work. He's gonna come to the church, ask for money for groceries. Then he's gonna
Mhm.
tell you that we don't have money for rent. I don't want you to give us anything
Mhm.
because I want to be able to come here and hold my head up high and not feel like we owe you anything. I just want to come here and have a safe space and let my children be part of the youth group and just have friends and not feel like we are beneath everyone.
Mhm.
And the pastor said, okay. And then that's exactly what happened. That
Yeah.
is exactly what happened.
Yeah. He
And
started coming.
yep. And
And
even when there would be guest speakers, the
mhm.
guest speakers would become like his best friend for the week or
Mhm.
two that they were there.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible, just watching it happen, and, it was just so there came a point in time when we were going to that church that it got really, really bad. We actually
Yeah.
had, one of the couples from our church come and stay with us because they were
We're
in
gonna
between
m
homes. They were
Yeah.
gonna move to the US, and they didn't, and they'd given up their house and whatever, and they witnessed so much.
Yeah.
And I think weren't they elders in the church?
They were. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I had had enough, and I at one point, one of the many times I had to call the police throughout my marriage, I had a victim services file, um, oh gosh, the stories are flooding back, but I had had enough, and I called the police, and I filed a domestic violence report,
Mhm.
and we went and stayed with a friend of yours,
Mhm.
and he had a no contact order. And if he so much as even phoned somewhere that he knew I was going to be, that was breaking the no contact order. Well, he broke it and he broke it and he broke it and he broke it. And every time he broke it, I called and reported it to Crown Counsel.
Mhm.
And he would get rearrested and rearrested and rearrested.
Mhm.
And the church took his side.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I was told, you have to stay. Marriage is marriage. You stay together. They
Mhm.
did not side with me. They would not support me. A
No.
couple a couple of elders did, and their
Mhm.
wives secretly supported
Mhm.
us, but that meant nothing when it came right down to it. It was the pastor and his wife who really never liked me. She
Mhm.
never liked me. And okay, I'm going blank.
So, he broke all the no contact orders. The church was, basically, they were no help at that point.
Whatsoever.
Yeah, and we did end up going back
Yeah, we
after
did.
that. We
Yeah,
did,
we did.
because
Yeah.
we were like, "Well, what are we supposed to do?" At
We
that point, I was 17,
yeah,
16, 16, 16,
yeah,
and, we just and inside I was like, "Oh, we're so close, we're so close.
yes,
Oh, thanks a
yeah,
lot,
yeah,
church."
yeah.
Um,
The
because
scriptures, the
yeah, and then even at that time too, we had other, friends from our old church that lived in Vancouver that we started to, um, hang around with, and they were the ones who were also like, "You have to go back, you have to go," and they
yes,
were like, "Look at he's making changes," and you and I remember just times we were like, "Okay," because I was old enough to start seeing, like, I had always kinda seen, like,
pattern.
he's crazy, but,
Yeah,
um, I was getting older, like, "Are you kidding right now?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
really? And that's one thing, like, as Christian as I was, and I knew, okay, I wanna pick a good husband, I wanna stay married, I saw how awful the church was regarding staying in a marriage, and I did make myself a promise back then. I would never stay in a marriage just because the church said I had to. I did make
mm,
that promise to myself.
yeah,
If I stayed Christian, I was like, "There's no way. I don't actually care what they say, I
no,
wouldn't," because we lived
no,
through such a horrible, existence.
yeah,
Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that, but I do remember thinking, "Oh, no. No,
okay,
I wouldn't do that." You know what I mean?
So yes, I do.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking about, okay, we gave trigger warnings.
Yeah, so
Here are the things that I was living with him.
Mhm,
Um, as a child, I had been sexually abused,
mhm,
and whenever there would be an issue and I would say to him, "Look, you do not have the right to do this to me,"
mhm,
whatever it was he was doing,
mhm.
he would say to me, "Oh, this is your problem. This is a you problem. This isn't a me problem. You're just blaming me for what you went through as a child. I'm
Yeah,
not doing anything wrong. Any normal man would wanna do these things." And generally, it was sex against my will.
yeah.
For 12 years
Marital
I was
rape.
with him, he I was maritally raped almost every single night that I was with him, and I mean, even if I was on my monthly cycle, I was
Mhm,
not allowed to say no,
mhm,
and there was a few times I remember just putting my foot down and saying, "I'm not doing it," and I would have to lock myself in another room. I would barricade myself in another room, and he would not allow me to sleep. He would
mhm,
sit on the other side of the door,
mhm,
keeping me awake using sleep deprivation.
mhm.
But I had to be so quiet because I didn't want you and your brother to be kept awake or to be woken
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So there were times where I would just finally just give in and come out of the whatever room I'd lock myself in, a bathroom or a spare room or whatever, and then just go and just give in.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was awful.
I had no I
And
obviously.
I know, no, but I didn't want you to have any
No, I
idea
know, I didn't.
because I never wanted you to have a terrible view of sex.
Yeah, and you
It
never
was
I didn't.
so important to me that you had a healthy view of sex because,
Mhm.
number 1, I wasn't blaming him for what I went through as a child.
No.
That wasn't his fault. What he was doing was his fault, and whatever
Yeah,
happened to me at the hands of who did it when I was a child and the hands of what
yeah.
he did is no man's fault to this day. It's their fault, and I don't have
Yeah,
any hang-ups about that now.
yeah.
So, the other thing was, if I just would have a time where I couldn't take it anymore and I'd lose it, like, just say I just, "Ah!"
Mhm, okay, fine.
Yeah, he would say to me, "You're crazy. Your family thinks you're crazy. You're just crazy." I would
Mhm.
be like, "I'm not crazy. This is a normal response to what you're doing to me." But he
Yeah,
would find a way to twist it or twist my
yeah.
words or and you saw it. You would sit there and we would try to have conversations with this person.
Mhm,
He was so mentally unstable
mhm,
that I remember one time he was speaking badly about your biological father,
mhm.
and I said to him, "You are not allowed to speak badly about their biological father, no matter what he has done or what he has said. You do not have the right to do that.
Mhm.
That's just one thing you're not allowed to do.
Yeah,
First of all, you never lived with him, you didn't experience anything. His story is his story is your story. You do not speak badly about my children's biological father, especially in front of my children,
yeah.
because half their DNA is him. So
Mhm.
when you speak badly about their biological father, you're saying half of them, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And he said, "Yeah, you're saying I can't speak badly about him to anybody." And I'm just like, "That's not what I said." I just said, "You can't say it in front of my kids. You can go talk
Yeah,
to your friends, you can go talk."
yeah.
But whatever you would say to him, he didn't
Just
grasp.
yeah.
But that last house we lived with him in Richmond, I remember you saying to him one day,
Mhm,
"I heard my mom tell you she doesn't love you. Don't
mhm.
you care that she doesn't love you?" And what did he say to you?
He said, "I have enough love for the both of us." And I was like, "That's sick."
Yeah, you did.
I did, because I was getting older,
Yeah,
and I was just like, "That's actually really sick and really sad."
yeah.
So and he's like, "No, no, it's not." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"No, it
because right
is."
that was the very last summer, and I just started saying to him, "I literally hate you. Like, I
Mhm,
hate you." I just got so brave. I just got to the point
mhm,
where I actually didn't care. I was like, "Okay, death has to be better than this," because
Mhm. Yeah.
so that was in that
That
house, and
summer, yeah.
that's when I started planning our escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when I
And
started planning, and oh my god, yeah.
so
But
how did
every time I turned to the church was the one who turned me
turned
around and
you
said I had
around?
to go back.
Yeah.
Even when okay, and I'm not trying to throw your biological father under the bus, but even when he said to me that time, he came home and said, "I don't wanna be married, and I don't wanna be a father. I don't wanna do any of this anymore."
Mhm.
And I was just like, "Okay." And then he left, and I went to file for divorce, and the
Yeah.
church said, "Oh, no, 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 no. You can't do that. You have to stay legally married to him in case he ever changes his mind." And I said, "For how long?" And they said, "Forever." And I
Oh
said,
my
so I
gosh.
actually, I didn't say anything to them. I secretly went to the courthouse, and back then you had to have legal separation for 1 year,
Mm,
and then you just automatically get divorced. That's in Canada, that's when the no fault divorce was pretty new.
right.
And I went to legal aid, and they told me about it, and I
Mhm.
just did it. That was I just did it. And
You rebel.
I was like, I was just like, "No, I'm just." But I told him, I did
Mhm.
tell him, I said,
Yeah.
"Okay, you've got a year."
Mhm.
And we stayed friends and friendly in the whole 9 yards, but I don't think he actually thought I would do it.
Mhm.
And there were certain times, but he was never threatening to me like this
Yeah.
guy was. He was never a threat. He never threatened my safety or my security or your
Yeah.
safety or and with
No.
this guy that we're talking about, he would say, "I will kill you. I will kill
Mhm.
your family. I will," like, there was just like I
Yeah.
mean, he was the type of guy that if with you guys, I remember one time someone at school threatened Lance, and he phoned them up and said, "I will sit on top of your MF house with a gun and
Shotgun.
shoot all of you as you walk out of your house." I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah. And then I do remember after the Nicole and OJ Simpson,
"Yes."
I remember what he said to you.
So he actually knew OJ. He
Yeah.
actually knew him. And so after that happened, the line he used to say to me was when he'd be right up in my face, spitting on me, he would say, "Don't make me pull an OJ Simpson on your ass."
Mhm. If
And
you ever tried to leave. Yeah.
anything,
Or anything,
anything
yeah.
I did, anything.
Yeah.
And the the jealousy, the possessiveness, the
Yeah.
anything, if I looked too long in a certain direction, it was everything. I mean, I
Yeah.
had such a learned behavior that when I ended up with my last husband, who I was with for 18 years, I've been married my entire frickin' adult life. I'm not getting married ever again. I'm never getting married again. It doesn't mean I don't wanna find a forever person to hang out with and cuddle
Yeah.
with for the rest of my life, but I'm never getting married again. Um, by the time I married him, it took you and I especially, I don't know about your
Mhm.
brother, I can't speak for him, but do you remember when we'd hear the garage door roll up and we'd
Yeah.
be in the kitchen, be like, "Oh,
We'd
right,
tense up.
it's not him, it's him." Oh,
We'd be like, "Oh." Yeah.
because
Yeah, it
he
was
was just such a pleasure and such a sweet
yeah.
man. It was just like
Yeah. Like, "Oh, okay, we
he
don't."
didn't have any triggers. He didn't have any
He was
he
so
was just
sweet.
like, oh my
Yeah.
god, it was just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So here we can get back into the story, but this
Okay.
question right
Ask
here just popped
okay,
up
yeah.
says, "What possible excuse could the church have for sending you back?"
Because women are possessions. We are to submit. Our bodies are not our bodies. Our bodies belong to our husbands. So basically, if he wants to lay me down every single frickin' night, that's my job.
Mhm.
But they forget about the part or they don't preach the part, um, and it really doesn't matter because the Bible's a bunch of bullshit anyway. Husbands are supposed to love their wives as Christ loved the church. Well, how exactly does Christ love the church? Someone explain that.
Yeah.
Because Christ came to drive mothers and daughters apart, and
Mm. He
like
came with the sword not to bring peace, but with the
exactly.
sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, fuck that.
and I think the more that we have deconstructed and deconverted, we see the abuse between the church and
Yes.
its members as the
Yes.
same sort of system as just as long as if we can keep them controlled within their own marriages, then we can control them within the church. And as long as they say, and
Exactly.
then maybe they won't recognize the same sort of
Yeah.
similarities between the control
Yeah.
in the church and the control within marriages.
And what I wanna kinda make clear to people is I was literally this single mom, young Christian woman
Hmm.
who he just plucked right up and was 14 years older than me,
Hmm.
and I didn't know that until I was well into the relationship with him.
Hmm.
Oh, we forgot about the best
What?
part.
We
Okay,
did?
yeah, what I found out
Okay.
about him after he died.
Oh, well, we haven't even
Remember?
got to that part
Oh,
yet.
yeah, I know, okay.
Okay.
We'll
That's like
save
a
that. That's
yeah.
so juicy. We'll tell that. You guys stay to the end because, man, do we have some tea.
Oh, yeah, we have
Anyway,
like a zinger that
a
could
huge
unravel it
stinger
all. We do.
that if I had known okay, you guys, you gotta
Okay,
wait
yeah,
because 'cause
just
you're
wait.
not gonna believe this. That's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, so eventually we did get out.
We
One
did?
thing I do wanna say is that that summer, because this was 2001, just for context.
Wow.
Um, I know.
Oh my god. I was younger than you are
2001.
right now. Wow.
What?
I was younger than you right now when I finally got out.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So it was 2001, but that summer, so I was 17, and I remember, like, so I obviously I wasn't his daughter, but he knew me since I was like what, 3,
He
4?
met you when you were 2,
Oh, okay, he met me when I was
but I
2
didn't start seeing him
till
till
I
you
was
were 5.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then this one particular day, I I wanted to borrow a dress of yours. You know the
Yeah.
story I'm talking about.
Yeah, you go ahead.
And I borrowed one of your dresses that was my favorite dresses of yours. It was really like a pretty sundress, just a
Yeah, just
pretty
pretty.
green and white checkered sundress that I love with daisies on it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yay, it fits me. It's so pretty." And I walked down the stairs and he walked past me and he gave me this like, "Ooh, you look really good." And I just was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to throw up." And I went back upstairs, took it off, put on my own clothes and said to
You
you,
ruined it.
I'm like, um, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna wear this dress. And I told you what happened, and you said to me, "Don't worry, I'm getting us out. I
Yeah,
don't know how yet, but I'm getting us out." And I was like,
yeah,
"Okay, thank you."
yeah.
And because you said, he can try it or he can do whatever he wants to me, but I'm not gonna let it turn
It's
on.
no, the
It stops
second
here.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a couple months later that we
That was, like, July, August, and then it
yep,
was September. It
yep,
it was right after 9/11
it
that,
was.
9/11 happened, and
Yep,
then, I don't even remember, like, the night. I don't even know really what happened. There was just a big
kerfuffle.
fight.
Well, what happened was, for some really weird reason, it's like he didn't know anything. But he acted
Oh,
like my
yeah.
friend told him what I was doing, and she didn't.
That's right. He kinda gaslit you in a way.
He
Yeah,
did.
not
He's
in
like,
a way,
"So,
he
I
did.
talked to Michelle,
So
and she
yeah,
told me what you're doing," and I was like, "Michelle wouldn't do that." I didn't say anything. I said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about," and I was
yeah.
planning to get out. We moved from Vancouver back here to the Okanagan because he was going to go back and coach basketball in another province for the winter.
Something like that,
And
yeah.
while he was in
Gone.
Saskatchewan, we were going to up and move back to the coast and disappear.
Yeah, that was your
That was the
plan.
deal. That was the plan. So, he thought we were just gonna stay in small town Okanagan, and the plan was, no, as soon as he's gone, we're packing up again and moving back to the
To the
city
big city
and
amongst
just
millions of
disappear.
people.
Yeah, like, literally, that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And for some weird reason,
He just had this feeling. It was the
we
Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
Sorry, sometimes we just have to
yeah.
laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways,
So,
so that night
yeah, there was a big kerfuffle, and I don't remember exactly how, but I ended up calling the police, having
mhm,
him arrested, and, um,
we went to a women's shelter.
we did. You and I went to a women's shelter, and they said that night that boys couldn't come that were a certain age. We found
Yeah.
out later that wasn't true. So your brother went to my sister's,
Mhm.
and he got out of jail and went back to where we were living, but you and I stayed in the shelter,
Mhm.
and then do we talk about that?
I guess, yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, we lived on the upper floor of a townhouse, and there was an old lady living downstairs, and he charmed this old lady. She felt sorry for him and started leaving food for him
at the front door.
at the front door. The landlord saw the food and somehow got a hold of my sister and told my sister that I had left food for my husband that I had arrested. So my sister turned on us, turned on me.
Mhm.
And my son was staying there, and she told my son, "Your mom is going back to him again." And that was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. It wasn't the
Yeah.
truth. We had no idea what was going on at the time.
Mhm.
And we tried to go and see your brother, and that was one of the worst nights of
It
my
was just
life.
a rough night. Yeah.
It was terrible. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
So there we were in a city that we didn't really know, because it wasn't the city we're living in now. It was a city that's 40 minutes away. And we were in the dark. We had tried to go get your brother because we were told boys could come stay there. Remember?
That's right,
We went
yeah.
to go get him.
Mhm.
She wouldn't let us in the house. He wouldn't come to the door. So we left. And I remember you and I
Just
just standing
walking.
in the just and we went and we stood at the dark in the dark by a payphone, still no cell phone. We were
Mhm.
just standing by a payphone, and, I called your uncle. I remember
Mhm.
calling your uncle, and he's like, "You need to come home."
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, I want to, but I can't leave without Lance," and
It was
then
just
we
weird.
it
Bad
was
night.
weird. We sat on the curb, and I said, "Stacie, what are we gonna do?" We were so alone. And then a taxi pulled up beside us, and he said, "Are you guys okay?" And I just looked
And
at
we
him and
just
went,
went,
"No."
"No."
And we just
Yeah. 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 Think and then I so then, yeah, we got him to take us
so
to the police station
yeah,
and then got a police officer to go get my brother and then take us back to the women's shelter,
yeah.
and then we ended up getting all of our stuff and going back to Vancouver, and
We never saw him again.
we got on the Greyhound bus, and that was the last we ever saw him. He
Yeah.
stood by the Greyhound bus waving, not no thinking that was the bus we were probably
He
on.
didn't even know for sure. And we looked out the
No.
window and went, "There he is." And he waved at the bus just
No, but you could tell he was just kinda looking at, like, all the
yeah,
windows, like, I don't know if
he couldn't
that's
see
it.
us because it was tinted. It was so weird.
It was weird, and, I think you looked, but I don't think I did, I just was like, "I don't wanna see him."
Oh my
And,
gosh.
because I don't really have a memory of it, I just kinda know what you described, so I can see
Yeah,
what you described.
yeah.
And, we thought this is not gonna be the last we ever see him because he's just never gonna give
He's
up.
relentless.
He's re Yeah, and it actually was the last we ever saw him.
Yep.
And, um, he but it wasn't the last we ever heard his voice because he used to
Nope.
call he found out where you
Yep.
worked, and he would still
Yep.
call.
Yep.
And then I ended up working there too, and I answered the phone a bunch of times, and I just knew his voice and my stomach were
Ah,
getting knots, and I would pretend I just didn't know it was him so he wouldn't know it was me, and I'd be like, "Oh my god."
yeah.
And then, we got news through Facebook in, like, 2010 that he died.
But don't forget, not long after I left him, he ended up with someone like a year older than you
Oh, yeah, that was disgusting.
and had 2 kids.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He
So,
was
anyway,
So, we
yeah.
found out he passed away,
Mhm,
and one day, a few years after that, I just Googled his name, and I
mhm.
found a message board, and somewhere on this message board, there was a little sentence that said, "His first name and last name, da da da, da da da, was my father. I would like to know more about him." So I messaged her and I said, "If you really wanna know more about your father, message me, and I'll tell you anything you wanna know if you're prepared for the truth." So, this young woman and I ended up having a telephone conversation. She called me from California.
Or Texas?
No, it was
Oh,
California,
okay.
and we had quite a long conversation, and
Here's the bombshell.
during the course of this conversation, found out that the entire time I was married to this monster, he was legally married to her mother in the United States.
Dun,
So,
dun, dun.
yeah, and almost the entire time he was married to me, almost a few years before he and I divorced, he stopped calling her, but he used to call and harass her mother. And we think her mother found out about the marriage with me because her mother threatened him with something and said, "If you don't stop calling me," she threatened him with something. And we think that's what it was. We think she found out he was married in Canada and she was going to report him. So that's how her mother stopped him from calling.
Oh my
But,
gosh.
but, her mother had kept her from seeing him, and once this young lady became of age, he got in contact with his daughter and basically conned her into, "I'm a great guy. Your mother is lying to you. I'm not a bad person." And every story that I told her about her father was identical to every story her mother had told her about him.
Yeah.
So by the time I was done on the phone with her, she was a puddle of tears, and she said, "I have to hang up and call my mama and apologize." She had not spoken to her mother in a couple of years because he had gotten to her and turned her against her mother.
Oh my gosh. But knowing all of this, you weren't even technically legally married. You could have just
No,
left.
no, and I paid $5,000 to divorce his ass.
That the church made you stay all those times. Yeah.
And if I had known for 1 second he was married to someone, I coulda had him deported from Canada for bigamy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck is right, secular. Fuck. Just fuck.
Yeah.
12 years.
Mhm.
Oh, not
Yep.
only that, after he died, we found out about so many other kids that he had. Like,
Mhm.
I knew I had 3 stepchildren. One of them I'm still in contact with, who he thinks of Stacie and Lance as his brother and sister. He's a sweet
He's
guy.
very, very, yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. But, oh, we don't know. How do they not
Oh,
get checked by the government?
I
They
don't
pretty much
know.
they expect you just to be honest, I think. They really do.
I don't
Because
think they
he was
go into
married to
the
another girl here in Canada before he was married to me, and they had to get divorced.
yeah. So
He
he
had to
just got
prove.
married everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, he just got married and had kids. We don't know how many
I think
kids he
he
actually had.
I think he probably thought because he was in another country, it and like it n that marriage in the US was null and void. I could see him thinking that. No, I'm being
And
serious.
then oh, yeah, I could see him thinking that because he was so ridiculously stupid. Um,
Yeah.
what was I gonna say? Shoot, I
I don't
lost it.
know.
But anyway, um, the fact that she said something to him that made him stop calling, I'm sure she found out about me because he took
Probably.
me down to the United States and I met his sisters and stuff. So
Yeah.
someone found out about me
Yeah.
and probably said, "Hey, if you want this a-hole to stop calling you, threaten him with this."
Yeah.
And she was
It's like,
probably
"Oh,
so grateful. Yeah.
yeah, definitely."
But meanwhile, I was living her nightmare.
Mhm.
And she could have
She
called
should have
me.
called you
She should
anyway.
have got a hold of me, and we both could have. Wow, thanks a lot, lady.
Right?
No sisterhood there.
Yeah, because if
Anyway.
she was going through hell just with the phone calls,
Yeah, just with
you
phone calls
know,
because he
just with
never left
phone
my side.
calls. No. No. Yeah, no. There's a lot. There's a lot, so,
Oh, we
um,
haven't there's millions of
yeah.
stories, Crystal. There's just no way we could tell them here now.
It's hard
Yeah.
because you're just like, "Oh, yeah, we could talk about this," but then it's like, "Okay, where do we
No.
even begin?"
You
Because
can't. You just
it
can't.
was
I just
just
remember on the worst
the
days, you and me and Lance going and hiding in the bathroom and just having our fun times. I would say, okay, he would do something particularly stupid. And I'd say,
Mhm.
okay, guys, go to the bathroom. And I'd say, okay, this is not normal. This is not
Yes.
what people do. What he's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And like,
And you would say,
I
"We're not gonna live like this forever," and we'd be
yeah,
like,
I would say,
"Okay."
I'm going to get us out of here. I
Yeah.
promise. And when I got out of that marriage,
Mhm.
there were so many people that we had daily contact with just in our daily life, the grocery store, the schools,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And we'd tell our story and people would be like, "Are you kidding me?" They had
Yeah.
no idea. Like just
Yeah.
and then there
Or
was other people that came up to me, especially I'm thinking Save on Food. Some of the cashiers were like, "So you're not with him anymore?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh my God." We used to sit around the coffee room and be like, "What the hell is that woman doing with that guy? She could do so much better." And I was just like, I just had to be really quiet and not say
Yeah.
anything or
Yeah.
yeah.
But remember the time there was one oh, I'm thinking of 2 stories actually. The one story where you didn't you go to a payphone or so many payphones, but
Yeah.
didn't you go to a payphone or somewhere with no shoes on?
That's when you guys were at school. We got in
Yeah.
an argument. He locked me out of the house without shoes on, and I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna just sit outside here." So I proceeded to, I went to the mall to go and call one of my best friends,
Mhm.
who's no longer our friend because 'cause we're not Christian, and, she was one of your children's godparents,
Mhm.
and I was so stressed, I couldn't remember her phone number, and to this day, I can remember her phone number.
Yeah.
I kept dialing and I couldn't dial the phone,
Like
I
in
was
a
so stressed.
nightmare when you can't dial
Exactly.
the phone. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So then I turn around and look, and he was walking through the mall door, and I was freaked out because we
Oh
had
my
been in public
god.
before arguing, and people had tried to come to my aid, and he had threatened to kill them or beat them, and
Oh
I
my
didn't want anyone to
gosh.
get hurt, so I booked it out of the mall exit. And then I tried to make it to the police station, but
Mhm, which
instead
was
I
across
found
the street.
but I found myself in the Richmond Caring place,
Yeah.
And I ran in the door and I said, "I'm being followed by my husband who is, abusive, and he locked me out of the house, but now he's following me." And they're saying, "Okay, go out this back door, and it's 50 meters to the RCMP." And so they helped stall him as he followed me, and I booked it across in my bare feet to the RCMP.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my it was incredible, but all of these things, the one thing I did do, the best thing I ever did for myself was I hid it from a lot of people, but never from the police. I had a
Mhm.
file like this thick with
Mhm.
all the stories.
Yeah.
So when I did finally go to get a divorce, I just had to pay a stupid lawyer,
Yeah.
but, the judge just had the file on his desk. He just
Mhm.
flipped through some things along with some letters from some people of things they witnessed. He just signed it. I got a divorce in, like, a couple of days. I didn't have to
Yeah.
wait. It was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, tick, 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 tick. Okay, no. He signed it and I was divorced.
Mhm.
I had no waiting period, nothing, because I had everything documented. So that's the one thing I did right in a lot of things that I did wrong, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was good. You were thinking ahead. You knew we weren't gonna stay in it forever,
yeah.
no matter what. Like, even if the church was saying you every time we did go to the church for help thinking, "Okay, maybe they will help us," and they were like, "Oh, no, you gotta go back." It was like we kind of that's when we started feeling like, "Okay, it's kinda us against the world," because we knew
It was.
that's when I knew
Yep,
I'm not gonna listen to the church when it
yep,
comes to things when I'm older that
yep,
like I was saying, like, "Nope."
yep. Just in
Um,
case there's a small chance they ever see this, I will say Barb and Van were amazing. They
yeah,
always were on our
yeah,
side. So if they
yeah,
ever
they
see
were.
this, which I don't know if they will, because
Who
but
knows?
if they
But
ever do,
they know
they
who
were
they are.
they were true Christians who I will love till the day I die.
Yeah, they were
They
great.
they loved us unconditionally, and I know they probably still would if we were still in contact with them. We're just not right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So, oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
See?
Okay, no, I remember now.
Oh,
I
wow, you're
wanted
better
to say
than I am.
I wanted to say, um, just another way, kind of along the same lines, but not really. But so as soon as you did get out of that relationship, if that's what you want to call it, that
Yeah.
abusive relationship, um, it was here's where I'm like, this is where I play a part. Um, but this is where religion plays a part
Yeah.
again. Um, you
I
were
was never gonna get married. I was
you were
never gonna be with
never
another man. I never wanted to have sex again as long as I lived. That was yeah,
yeah,
that didn't happen.
that's neither here nor there.
No,
Um,
definitely not here.
um, but we still didn't have a place to live. We were living at my grandmother's, like, practically studio apartment, and we had moved back to Vancouver. You went for a job interview, met
Yeah.
a man who
Yeah.
said, "Okay, I'll hire you." We met
Yeah.
him for 10 minutes.
Yep.
He was very nice,
Yep.
and me, being the prophetess that I was at 17, walked by
Declared.
you. I walked by you. I can still see it. You were sitting on the bathroom floor, like, just trying to organize your toiletry bag in this tiny little studio apartment because we have nowhere to live, and I
And I
walked
was
by you,
free.
and I looked at you and I said, "Mommy, so and so is the one." And you looked up at me and said, "The one for
Uh,
what?"
exactly, and my face looked completely repulsed. I was like, "He's the one what?" And you
Yeah,
went, "He's the one," and I went,
that's exactly what you're like, "Okay, what?"
yeah.
And then my grandma gave her the same word. It was confirmation.
Yes, SR, yes. She did that to me. And he's a really nice man, don't get me
Yeah, and I love
wrong.
him.
Yeah, we love him, but I ended up in my next marriage, and I woke up that morning actually, I knew before I married him, I shouldn't marry him. I ended up married to a man that should have just been my best friend because he's still one of my best friends, but I ended up in an 18-year marriage where 17 of those years, he did not lay one hand on me in a romantic manner. He just took really good care of us, and he was super sweet, and
Spoiled us.
yeah, spoiled us, took really good care of us. He was so sweet and so kind, but he wasn't my forever
Yeah.
lover.
So that's where another thing where it just feels like
Hi,
you
William.
get this impression of like, "Oh, that's an idea. It should just stay an idea." But
Yeah.
but when you're caught up in the charismatic
Mania.
world, any kind
Charismania.
charismania, any type of idea is like, "Oh, that's God speaking to me." What?
99% of a good marriage is not sexual in nature. Oh, well, we'll agree to disagree. It's gotta be at least 80. Anyway, let's move on.
Um, so yeah, it wasn't an abusive, marriage or anything.
Mm-mm.
It was like you said, it shoulda just stayed a friendship.
Yeah, we never argued. We were like we were so polite and cordial with one another. It was like we were on our first date
All the
forever.
time.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
time.
Okay, so Stacie and Brian, they could have arguments. And what did I used to say to you?
Oh, you would just say, like, "You're so lucky that you can, like, say how
Argue.
you're feeling."
Yeah.
And
You're so lucky you can argue and then just move on and get over it and whatever. I couldn't even have arguments. We just
yeah,
didn't. So I was on the never ending first date. So,
yeah. And
because he
then
was just so sweet.
and then when that started to just kinda, like that ran its
Deteriorate.
course. That's
Yeah.
probably the best way of putting it is it ran its course,
Mhm.
um, because, again, I there's nothing bad you can say about him or you or, like,
No.
there's nothing.
No.
It was
No.
just it ran its course.
Yeah.
But at near the end, it was like, "Oh, I can't divorce or I'm gonna go to hell."
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
even though there was no church involved in that, there was still the what?
And remember
Oh,
when he was supposed to sign the final papers?
yes!
Okay. So, even with the last marriage, because he's a Christian still,
Mhm,
he's the one who wanted the divorce. He's the one who told me to leave. He's the one who said, I think we'd be better off if we were apart. It took 2 years of him saying that, and I finally said, "Okay, I've heard this enough. I'm gonna go."
mhm,
I had to file for the divorce
mhm,
because he's a procrastinator. I filed for the divorce. I did all the legwork, all the paperwork, came down to the final papers, and he phoned me and said, "I've ripped up the papers. You're my wife. You belong with me. Get back here." And I said, "You've got to be fucking kidding me. You better sign those papers or else." And I just went off on him for the first, like, I just went off.
Yeah.
He phoned Stacie and said, "Stacie, do you think you could get me copies of those divorce papers? Your mom just really scared me."
That's right. He told me like 10 times, "She really scared me. She really scared me."
Because I'd always
Like,
been so
yelled.
polite and kind. I'm just like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You're the one who said you wanted this fucking divorce."
Yes.
But he decided now we're gonna be Christian, and I was
Yeah.
so done.
Yeah.
Ah.
But it really, like, we were still, like, hadn't so, yes, Well, you had,
I
but you
had,
hadn't
but
come out.
no.
And I
And
definitely
you
hadn't.
hadn't deconstructed, but you really wanted me to get divorced
Because I was
because you
like, I
knew I
don't
wasn't
want
happy.
I knew you weren't happy, but I
Yep.
was afraid of coming right out and saying to you, "Mommy, just get divorced," because I
Yeah.
was afraid if I said that to you, then I would be
You'd
held accountable on
responsible.
judgment
Yes!
day.
I know. It's all just a mind fuck.
Yeah. So, yes, the ideas religions teach are abusive by themselves, even without a church forcing you into stuff.
Yes.
Yes, because at that time, you weren't even involved in a church
Nope.
and you were still just like, you were really struggling, like, what
Yep.
is the right thing to do? And I was like,
Well, also,
ah,
let's just do the math here.
yeah.
This was my 3rd marriage. First husband left me, okay,
Hmm.
after 8 years. He left me.
Yeah.
Second husband was an abusive fuckhead,
Yeah.
and I got out with my life. And the 3rd husband, he just said, "Okay, it's been 18 years. We're done. Let's just go our own separate ways." I'm like, "What?" So I was like, and then, okay, and to be honest, after the divorce was final, it was final in October, January the next year, he phones me and says, "I just wanted to tell you I'm really sorry for everything I put you through. I want you to know that you were just the best wife, you're the best mother, you're the best person, you're the best daughter anyone could have. You're just the best person ever, and I'm never gonna get married again because 'cause I'm never gonna put anyone through what I put you through." I'm like,
Aw.
"Great, thanks." By the time he was done, I was bawling,
Aw.
but it's like I had 3 marriages, and I just felt like the biggest failure,
Mm.
and no, I'll never get married again because I don't need a piece of paper to make me committed, but I was committed to each one of them at one point or another. The second one was a ridiculous mess, but
Yeah.
oh my god, like, I just felt like a failure. I got married for the first time at 17, and at age, what, 57, I got out of my last
Like
marriage. That's 40 years of marriage, and here I am. Fuck.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ugh.
we
Now
both
I
did that at
have
the same
complete
time.
strangers proposing to me on Facebook today. I'm just like, "No, sorry, not gonna do it."
Nope, 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 nope. Oh my goodness. Okay, but let's tell a funny story really
Okay,
quick.
let's. Oh my
Um,
gosh,
and
thank you,
yes,
SR.
you are absolutely not a
I
failure.
know,
She
but
is not.
you do feel that way though, like, you're just like, oh, and I could just hear my sister who hasn't spoken to me in forever going, "Hmm, hmm, hmm, 3rd one, gonna repeat mom's mistakes." My mom was married 4 times. I'm just like, "That's why I'm not getting
Whatever.
married."
Don't worry about it. Who cares?
Anyway,
Okay,
go.
you're not a failure because even through everything, like all the like that second one where sex was
Ugh,
forced upon you and
yeah,
all that, I never ever knew that. I never and like you said, you wanted me to have a healthy view of
yeah,
it. I really did have a healthy do have a healthy view of
I
it, and
know.
you made sure. So I think that
That sex is good, sex is
pat yourself on the
it's
back.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
hi, Andrew. I
Hi.
really, really I knew that he was messed up. I
Of
wasn't messed up,
course. Of
and if I knew
course.
that if I was with the right person,
Mhm.
I would want it. I just didn't want it 12 years in a row every day.
Nobody
No.
does. Well, okay, maybe
Well,
somebody does.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like
I do.
he was just gross. He was just
Yeah.
gross. Okay, what was the funny
Okay, so
story?
the funny story is I wanna tell this funny story.
Okay.
So because we love it. Um, so I had not deconverted yet. My mom had just started dating.
Oh, yeah.
You know the story.
You
This is
tell
a
it.
good one.
This is a
So,
gooder.
okay, so I was in the process of like, okay, wrestling with doubts and I wanted to deconvert. I wanted to just be like, fuck this all. I hate religion, but I was really afraid. And I was kind of like talking to my mom, like, leaving these little clues of like, I don't know if I want to believe this anymore. I don't think I believe this anymore. And I was just saying how Christians were just so, I forget the words I used,
Hypocritical.
hypocritical. I
That's
was
the
like,
word you used,
oh,
hypocritical.
oh, I was like, Christians are just so hypocritical. And
I thought you were talking about me.
no.
I
so,
know, but wait.
so we're driving and I was just going on and on and on about all these things because I was coming to all these realizations on my own. And I was like this close to deconverting, okay? Like this close, you guys. And I was trying to like feel my mom out. Like, is she anywhere close to deconverting? I had no idea, right? And I kept saying they're so hypocritical. And then all of a sudden, I'm driving, okay, and she yells out, Stacie, I'm having sex. And I was like, what?
What?
Like that shocked me to my very core. Okay? Because I thought we were just these two like Christian girls. And I
But you got to
was
tell about the conversation with Brian not long before.
so like
Because I just started dating.
she just started dating. Okay. So my husband and I were out for dinner and she had just started dating. And in my head, I was like, okay, there's no way she's gonna have sex because she's a good Christian girl. And in my head, I wanted to say to her, just go do it. Go do what you want, right? And then my husband says while we're at dinner, I really hope your mom just doesn't feel like she has to get married to have sex. Like, I hope she just enjoys herself and enjoys dating. And I was like, yeah, I know. That's kind of what I'm hoping too. But I didn't want to be the one to say it. So we're having this conversation, and I wanted to go home and tell her, just do what you want. But I, again, didn't want to like
The daughter wanted to give the mother permission to have sex.
because
I think
you
that's
need
hilarious.
you need my permission. So, but that's how close we are.
That's how
So,
close we are.
yeah. So then it was like, I don't know, like a couple of days later or a week later, she just lays this bombshell while I'm driving.
Because I
I
thought you were talking about me being a
I
hypocrite.
wasn't. I was not. So she says this to me, and I have to roll my window down and like gasp for air out of the window. And
And
so
drive.
and drive. So I parked the car because I was really close to where we were going. I was going to pick my kids up from an activity. And I had like 5 minutes to like catch my breath. And I was just like, oh my God. And I kept looking at her. I was like looking at her. I'm like, what? What? And she's like, yeah. And she couldn't look at
Really
me.
good.
Yeah. And I was like, stop saying these words. But oh my God, I'm so happy for you. But what? So then I had to go get my boys, and then they get the car, and I was just like, okay, now we have to drive in silence. So I know I'm like, okay,
It
well,
was so
I'm
funny.
like, go have a fun weekend. I
Yeah.
know what you're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so then I walk in the door. My
Oh,
husband's
this
like
is hilarious. I
renovating the
wish I was
kitchen.
here.
He's like painting the cabinets or something, and he's like, hello. And I was like, hi. And I walk over to our wine cabinet and I grab a bottle of wine. It's like 4:30 in the afternoon. And he's like, what are you doing? And I crack the top, and I was like, I pour a glass of wine, and he's like, what are you doing? I go, my mom's having sex. And I chug a glass of wine. And he's like, oh, good for your mom. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I need to sit. I'm seeing stars, but I'm really happy for her. But what is happening right now?
But you have to understand, everybody, I'd only been with people I was married to.
Yes. So, but in the same way, okay, so I don't think I've ever like said this part to you, but because I was going through this deconstructing in
Oh,
my head,
yeah.
knowing that you had like jumping off a cliff
Yeah.
kind of gave me this like permission to be like, all right, well,
Yeah. No
a
holds
free for
barred.
all. I'm like, if she's doing that, then like, who cares if I go on ex-Christian Reddit? Like,
Right?
I'm yeah, it kind of
So we're doing this.
so we're doing this, like Hamilton says.
Yeah.
Um, but it really did kinda give me that, like, "Okay, alright."
Yep.
And then I remember, like, we talked about it a few days later, and then you were like, "Are you disappointed in me?" And I was like, "No, I'm just still in shock." And you're like, "I hope you're not disappointed." And I'm like, "I'm not." I'm just, like I was, like, processing it all. And, yeah, it was just
And then the guy I was dating, he lived out of town, so I was going there that weekend, and I went and I told him, I go, "So, I told Stacie," and he's like, "What? How am I ever gonna face her?" I don't know, guess you're just gonna have to. And I don't
Yeah.
think you ever saw him again. You
No, I
never saw him?
didn't.
No,
No, I
no.
didn't. You guys dated for a while, but it just
Yeah,
worked out that I didn't see
yeah,
him again, just because he didn't live that close
no,
and
and
whatever,
then he
but
died.
I know
He passed
okay,
away. Sorry,
it
people,
sounds
he
so
died.
bad.
Everybody dies.
He died from a heart attack last
No,
year.
a
A
stroke
stroke.
last September, yeah,
Yeah, after you guys
yeah,
had broken up, so,
yeah.
um,
So, yeah, anyways, that is a funny story.
that one was because that was, like that one is a really funny story, and you
That is I
always say,
love
"I
that. I'm
wish
like,
I could, like, relive that moment
"Oh, it was
again
so
and again."
good."
And then
But I
okay,
really
what
thought you were talking about me being like, because 'cause
No!
you're like, "Oh, Christians are such hypocrites." I'm like, "She knows. How does she know?"
I
Oh my
didn't.
god, she's talking about me.
I know, I know. Okay, and then one more funny story,
Okay.
because there was a couple times where you just shocked me, and then I was like, "Okay, you haven't shocked me again, so don't shock me anytime soon." But there was one time this is so
"Stacie,
funny.
I've been with a woman." No, I'm kidding.
No, I'd
Well,
probably
you
just
never
laugh
know.
at this point. No, see, I'd be like, "Good for you."
Yeah. I know you would at this point, you're not
I would,
even
I'd be
lying.
like, "I don't really
I'd be
care."
like, "You know what? I cannot find the right man. I think I'm switching teams." You're like, "Go team."
Okay. No, but then so this was like this was so new in our like the the journey, like the
Process.
beginning of
Yeah.
our journey. But so then you went on a date with an atheist and I was encouraging you to.
Yeah.
So won't name names, but
Yeah.
um I said I said to you, "Oh, like what about that atheist?" And then you're like, "Oh yeah, we've hung out a few times." And then like a couple months later, you kept saying, "Well, I've dated an atheist." And
Oh,
I dated an
yeah.
atheist, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Finally, after you saying it like 4 times, "I dated an atheist," I'm like, "Mommy, you went for coffee 1 time. I do not think that counts as dating an atheist." And you're like, "Yeah, well, we've had sex." And I was like I was making my bed. I was
I
like
remember.
I was making my bed. I was tucking in my fitted sheet,
Yeah.
and I just, like, hit the ground. And I
I'm
was
like,
like
"Yeah, we kinda did more than just go for coffee."
I was like, "What?"
Oh my god. I know.
So,
I
I'm
feel
like
like the teenager.
I know. Like,
Yeah.
those were, like, the
Well
2 times you knocked the wind out of me.
I had to make sure he didn't actually have a tail.
I know. So I was like, "Okay, is there any more bombshells you're gonna
Oh my
drop?" So
gosh.
now not like now I feel like nothing
Not a lot
phases
shocks you.
me.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no.
"Meh."
Yeah, whatever.
So, now you're very happy. The church doesn't control you.
Yeah.
We had to
Yeah.
I'm glad
Anyway.
we thought of those I thought of those on a lighter
Yeah.
note because
Yeah.
you do like, you have a healthy view. You're good.
What?
Okay, we didn't actually watch Netflix
Yeah.
and chill. Okay, I have a funny story about that.
Oh my gosh.
So I had never heard that term before. This was like 6 years ago, and we used to own a tea shop, and there was a young girl who worked for us, and I was giving her a ride home after work. She's like, "So what are you gonna do when you get home tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I'll probably just watch Netflix and chill." And she looked at me, and I was like, "What?" She's like, "Oh my god, do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "Just watch Netflix and chill." She's like, "That's code for having sex." I'm like, "It is?" She's like,
I
"Yeah."
remember
I was
that.
like, "Oh, well, I mean, I'd be with my husband, so it's like, whatever. But I never knew that term, and it was just funny
Oh
because I
my
literally was like, "Oh, I'll
gosh.
just probably go home and watch Netflix and chill." She's just like,
Uh.
"You're divulging so much information."
Don't ask if you
It's
don't wanna
funny.
know. That's my motto.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
Oh, SR. Oh my gosh.
That's what I should have said.
Yeah.
Except
Oh,
I didn't talk like that then. I was
we
still a
would now.
Christian.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Oh my goodness. All
Well,
right.
I'm glad
So,
we laughed a lot because I had a little bit of anxiety over doing this today. I didn't know how deep it was gonna go. There were so many stories that were really flooding my mind, but I think it's just enough that it was good.
it does give more of a glimpse into kind of the things that we've
Yeah.
we've been through.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And also it shows why we are so close because
Yeah.
I mean,
We've
we've always been close.
literally been through hell and back.
Yeah, it
The
feels
only
like it
hell is
for sure.
here on earth. Yeah.
And yeah. So,
Oh,
that's why we're very close. We've literally I think
yeah.
when you're sharing a room in a women's shelter and you don't know where you're gonna be next, where you're gonna
Yeah.
live,
Yeah.
what your next move is, and you're living with, like, other people who are in really strange coming out of horrible situations,
Yeah. And
you're
even
just
though
like,
we were
"Okay,
there, I don't know how long we were there, it was a week or 2, I ended up
maybe
becoming
about a
the
week."
house mother.
Yeah, you
Like,
did. And
I
you were
became the
giving
house
some
mother.
girls you were giving these 2 girls, like, you got some money and you're like, "Here, girls, like, you need this, you need to go," and
Yeah. Yeah.
you gave them a little bit of money too to
Yep,
just help
and I
them.
was cooking and everybody was
Aw,
coming to me. It was incredible. It was just
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, we can turn I feel like even in bad situations, we've we've come through and I don't know.
I
We've
always say I came through better, not bitter.
yeah,
I really do,
yeah.
because bitter just makes you look
I hope it didn't freeze on you like that.
who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
Thank you, SR. That's very sweet.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would change certain things about I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it just kinda it makes you who you are, and then I think you can relate to different people, and then when you say like, "Hey, I understand what you've been through," you actually mean it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
remember
that's
when I sorry, when
no, no, no,
I
go ahead.
had my first baby was stillborn. It's one thing my mother ever said to me that made sense. She said, "I know it's really hard right now, but one day you will meet a woman who goes through the same thing and you'll be able to look her in the eye and say, 'I honestly know how you feel right now.'" And
Mhm.
that has happened for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it
yeah.
doesn't take away, like, the pain of it, but you can
No.
just let them know, "I understand," and
Yeah.
if there's anything
Yeah.
that I can do or just be
Yeah.
there and
Yeah.
yeah, so
And, real quick,
mhm,
2 weeks ago, a lady showed up near the end of my shift at my job, and she just randomly walked in and just started opening up to me, and she was, like, 2 days away from having to live in her car.
mhm,
And, I didn't have anything I had nowhere to offer her, but the lady who was taking over my shift, I knew she had a room opening up because she
mhm.
had an international student, and she swears she's not doing them anymore. She had 3, and she says she's never doing it again. But, long story short, I just said to her, I said, "Okay, if you can help this lady, her name is," and I told her her name. "She's sitting over there. I have to go, but
Mhm.
I know that you have a room opening up." And she went, "Absolutely. Leave her to me." And I went back over to the lady and I said, "Okay, my coworker is gonna help you out." And she's now living with her. She's got a job. And that woman was like, "I was just gonna drive right by here, and something just drew me in here." And what I did was when my shift was over, I sat and had a glass of wine with her and just let her talk. I spent like a half an hour with her,
Wow.
and I just gave her a hug and a kiss before I
Mm,
left and said, "You came to the right place. You're among friends now." And I knew exactly how she was feeling. She was so
Yeah.
lost. I could see it in her eyes, and it felt like our payphone moment. And I was the taxi driver.
Aw. See? So
Yeah.
you're able to, like, give someone
Yeah.
exactly what you knew they needed because you've been in those
Yeah.
exactly those
Yeah.
same moments.
And now she has a
So,
place, and she might be your coworker, one of your
ah,
coworkers.
alright,
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to end on this comment because it's very sweet. D, you are a poop.
All right, John. He sent me a message first thing this morning asking when we were on, and I sent him a voice note. I said, "Oh my gosh, I get to hear from John first thing in the morning."
Well, I just came back from camping. I walked in the door, she's like, "Go shower, we have to do our show." I
Yeah,
don't
I
even have a
said, "John's
thumbnail
already
yet.
been harassing me, and we don't have a time, so let's get
I'm
going."
like, "I don't
Chop,
know."
chop.
That's why it was like, "We're going live now," because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
camping up
And she
until
hasn't done her thumbnail yet. So I'm gonna get a picture of me from back in the day when
the
I was with that
day.
freak. So you get to see me probably blonde with a spiral perm. That'll be
Yeah,
on the thumbnail.
okay. We'll get on it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, we could
Thank
sit here talking to all
you.
of you guys all the
We
time
love you
because
too, John.
we love you all, and
Yes.
thank you all for being here, and, don't forget to like the video
Yeah.
if you liked it. I mean, if
Yeah. If you
you
don't,
didn't,
well, meh,
yeah,
whatever.
and, yeah, what Crystal said, like, share, subscribe
Thank
to this awesome
you.
channel. Thank you, Crystal, and
Yeah.
okay, well, we will be back another
Next
time
Monday.
next
Next
Monday.
Monday, 10:30 Pacific Standard Time.
That's right. All right, I'm gonna show our little clip thingy, and then it might be
So there's
awkward with
that.
us going at the end, but okay.
Whatever. Okay. We love
Bye,
you all.
everyone.
Tut tut for now.
Bye.